Okay, Mark. Mark?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us and being here as we talk about our club boards, and thank you for your leadership with your club. These board positions are so important to the operating of our clubs, and any knowledge that you gain today in sessions like this is so important. So just appreciate your commitment to serving your club, as we're all volunteers that are trying to make our clubs and our operations better. Sincerely appreciate that, and look forward to being with you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, so I wanted to ask everybody, who is a brand new member of a board? Can you raise your hand? Who's brand new to the board? Oh, so everybody is pretty seasoned. Oh, Jeannie, great. Okay, so want to make sure that we have great information for you. And so we're going to have a breakout session. If we had a lot of people that were brand new, we would go by your role. But let me start with the introduction on my PowerPoint. So this year, our theme is create hope in the world, and you'll hear more about that from Mark. But our Rotary International president is Gordon McAnally, and some of his initiatives this year are prioritizing mental health, building peace with virtual exchanges, empowering girls. And so today we're going to talk about how you as a board member can help the clubs move forward. So our agenda today, we're talking about effective boards, Nancy Cabral, roles and responsibility, Lorraine Davis, effective board meetings. We have Toastmasters in the house. Toastmasters is an entity that is an official partner for Rotary, and they have classes and training on board meetings and public speaking and all kinds of things that they can help us with. So it's a really great partnership that we've had for maybe, 4 years with Rotary. Okay, then we'll talk a little bit about strategic planning, succession planning, and then we'll have a breakout session, and then fiduciary responsibility with Paul Saito at the end. So our next board forums, we try and do this quarterly so we can stay in touch and help each other. And so that video was, we're all in this together and we're going to have fun. So it should be fun for you to work together. And then the sessions will be on elections in October, conflict resolution in February, and June transition and lessons learned. But Gordon McAnally talked about how we can work together. We have continuity. We should have continuity so we don't have to reinvent the wheel each year. We have the learning assemblies coming up in April 6th and 13th on a Saturday. And that's where you can encourage the upcoming Rotary board members to attend and learn about what they're going to do and really share some best practices. So any questions for now? Oh. Good. Okay, then let's start with Nancy Cabral. If you don't know Nancy, she is in a company that manages a lot of condos. And so she goes to hundreds of board meetings every year. Every day she's someplace, and so she knows what an effective board is. So Nancy, take it away. What's an effective board?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I am, for 45 years, I've been managing condominium and subdivision board of directors. And, okay. And, so I've attended, probably over 100 meetings a year. There are, definitely weeks we have 3 and 4, so well over 100. So, and I've been doing it a long time. So, and I went off of a lot of my notes. I did research, not just in Rotary, but I did it sort of in Condominium Association Institute training in that. And I think a good board is so good and a not good board can be so bad. So it's really important that the board come together to take care of what needs to be done. And board members are elected to represent and protect the best interest of the organization. And the members within that organization and within that group are not always of the same likes and same mindset. You know, board members always need to also make sure you follow your governing documents, your bylaws, your organizational incorporations, and your goals. And that right off the bat is sometimes where people get way off on what they want to do. And then when they try and solve it or whatever, they end up going off and doing what they want to do instead of going back to what does their organizational, you know, if you really follow the Bible of your organization, it allows for the flow of things to happen in a proper manner. So, because again, you're representing your group, and you need the operations of the organization to maintain the common interest of everyone involved, because that's what everybody got into when they joined. A strong board members are going to be of good character. They're going to have strong integrity. So they're not going to be, a good character and strong integrity means they're going to put the welfare of the group first. And they're not going to work behind the board to run things in their own way. Lots of times you see that when you have board problems, it's because everybody's this way, but if I don't get my way, I'm going to go behind and try and get people to do what I want. And it just causes more trouble, especially in something like Rotary. We're really all here for the same thing. We're really all here to take care of our organization and our community. You know, it's a volunteer situation. We don't need to be manipulative or in the background behind things. Good board members are going to have calm judgment. They're not going to be impulsive or quick-tempered. And they're going to all have to be willing to serve. And serve means go to the meetings, attend the meetings, and of course, be prepared ahead of time. Good board members are going to be committed to the best interest of the group at large and not have their own personal or hidden agenda. And also they're going to put their interest, their personal interest behind that of everybody else. It helps if board members have some type of relevant experience coming into a board. And that's hard to say because you always want to bring somebody young back into it too, because you have to start training young people. So that has to become a balanced act for the president, especially in the way Rotary is, because the president's elected, but then they help to appoint, and then the membership helps to elect those members. So when you look at that, you want to have that balance somewhere of those are going to have the experience, but also then try and bring in young people that might have those characters of being good characters, good interest in the activities, and calm in their judgment. Previous volunteer experience in serving on a board can help, but again, that's kind of working out what that judgment is. And the ability to work well with others, you know, play good in the sandbox. We were supposed to learn that in kindergarten, I think. It pertains to us in Rotary still. And I guess one of the really big things is strong people skills, you know, able to work well with others and have good interpersonal skills. So those are those are really what we think of our basic, but I see it over and over again. I've done it. And of course, when I manage condominiums, I don't get to pick who's on my board of directors. I just have to live with them, sometimes for years, you know, so it's still a matter. And as a professional, I have board of directors that are so horrible to work with. I will cancel the account. I give up money. And I like my money, but I will cancel the account when I have a bad board of directors that are self-serving, or that are going to make me, my company, and myself liable for their bad decisions. So I'll get into liability later. Board of directors folks will also work on educating themselves or becoming educated. Those that are on this training today, and Rotary provides now, especially with our Zoom situation, so much training. Read your bylaws. The presidents of each club should make sure you get the bylaws. Each club has their own bylaws. Get your bylaws to all of your directors before they even, or once they've been elected and they make that commitment, then get them the bylaws. Do the training like we're doing. And then you come to a board meeting ahead of time, read your agenda, read your minutes, review your financial statements. So, because that way there, you're at the meeting, you're not asking question. I got a question. I got a question. You know, that could be done ahead of time. Try and get hold of your officers ahead of time, you know, and don't come to a board meeting to show off how smart you are at reading a financial statement and asking somebody really detailed questions about something. If you want that detail, it's all available somewhere. You know, call your officers ahead of time and say, I'm really curious, how did we spend this much money in that category? Because all your treasurers, and money's really important, all your treasurers should have an invoice for every single thing that they spend a penny on. You don't have to act like you're smarter than the treasurer, smarter than the president, because you know something smarter than them, or ask these cutting little detailed questions. That's just disruptive, and it starts to cause conflict in a board. And also, all of that helps to derail the board meetings, and that's where you start having conflict in boards. So, you know, again, you come on trying to be part of the team and not just part of a show off or something, or drilling the officers. Standing united. Once you make a decision, or the board makes a decision, even if you voted no, you stand behind it, because that's what makes the difference. Is you're a board together. You're not an individual. Those are called dictatorships. Extremely efficient sometimes, but that's not the structure we're with. So, and don't allow your personality or the personality differences with you or other people on the board to become overriding. That's a big problem too. You know, it's instead the group. Again, Rotary's a service club, and together we can do we're stronger, and we have to do what's right for that group and that group decision, and not just your own ego. A lot of people, we all come in with an ego. I certainly have one. Trying to be reasonable and not become so inflexible that you can't work with the group. Board of director sizes, and again, this is going to be what's already in your bylaws, but looking to your size is probably for a board meeting 7 to 9 or so directors. If you get too many directors on a board, it gets unreasonable, unworkable. If you get too small, then it becomes, one, might be hard to get a quorum, or also it becomes not representative of your group. So if you're looking to make changes in your bylaws, look to that. Rotary would give you lots of examples on that. Decisions are made by the group as a whole, again, not by individuals or by the individual officers. Lots of times your officers are elected, your president, vice president. They need to be careful not to think that they then become that dictator. They need to work with their board of directors. A lot of the decisions of this, the board is the decision-making group, and the policy making decisions are made by the board of directors, but they're not always the ones who carry out the work. So a lot of cases in our clubs, I think, certainly in a lot of boards, it becomes committees. And it's important that committees understand. In Rotary, we have a lot of standing committees, and our standing committees have a certain function. And then a standing committee remains in force indefinitely until the board or their policy or something, or your bylaws might have to change that. But an ad hoc committee, and a lot of times to function, an ad hoc committee is created because you're having a special event. You know, that special event's only for maybe this year. You don't need the ad hoc committee to be continuous, you know, for 20 years. That ad hoc committee is organized for that task, and then they're disbanded when that task is completed. And again, the size and the assignment and the activities and the power of that committee are derived from the board of directors. The board makes that decision. So even if you have a committee of one person, sometimes I think in small groups and boards, you point one person, oh yeah, you'll be the whatever committee. Well, that event committee, and that person may get other people, but again, they only work and they serve at the will of the board of directors. They need to be clear. Boards need to be clear about that function of that person, because lots of times committees then become little maybe overzealous in their reach also. So the board of directors is the one who makes the decisions, and they're bound, legally can be bound by that decision. Committees are not responsible for the decision if they follow what the board of directors. So you legally are personally could be held responsible for decisions when you're on a board. So I think Rotary, we have insurance of different types to help protect you in the event that someone sued the board of directors, and all board members need to understand they're stepping up to a higher level of responsibility and potentially liability. So you make sure your board has your coverage for you. Your board of directors should provide leadership and inspirational in addition to administrative activities. Again, especially in Rotary, inspiration and doing the administrative part is your board of directors comes together, makes the decisions to make sure that you can have your membership meetings, that you can have your different foundations, and you can have your different activities and your club socials and your community service. All of those happen because that board of directors made a decision to have that activity and to appoint someone. So that's the administrative part about it. But you have to try and do that in an inspirational way because you want to make sure you instill a sense of caring. The board sets the tone for the entire club for that year or possibly for years, by having a sense of caring within the group, pride in your service, pride in your community, and of course, pride in Rotary. And of course, for all of us in Rotary, it's a matter of being honest and truthful, but also being in a board meetings, in your meetings, trying to be lighthearted and have fun. Attending a board meeting that is unpleasant is really, really not fun. And then people don't attend. You might not get a quorum in that. I know people have activities, but making sure you have your activities are lighthearted helps. Setting the tone, collaborating with others in your group, and looking around and seeing if you have, especially for your officers, or even as other board members, you realize that some of your board members might need help, either with what their assignment is or what they're trying to take care of, and trying to make sure you can reach out and help that person. Decisions by the group. You want to make sure it's not individual decisions. And again, your legal responsibility. Trying to make sure, because I think I'm running out of time. Okay. At the beginning, the president and the board should try and set up, making sure you have training like you're doing now, but even your own board having an orientation training and giving out to your board members your bylaws, a roster of all your key connections for people to be able to get hold of each other, and setting up the president, what's your hierarchy of who does what, providing your governing documents, making sure they have the most recent minutes, your financial reports that are current, and any continuing projects or committee reports need to get passed forward to a new board. And your goals of your board for the coming year should be set up to a certain degree. And then again, making sure you try and have all your board members continue with education and being a part of that group. So I think that's pretty much okay. I don't know if that's what you folks wanted, effective boards. That's how an effective board should work. Anybody got questions, or Naomi?
Questions? Oh, Kanoi. Oh, muted.
I just opened myself up. Okay, so I have a question, which is, what is a reasonable size board? And what dictates that? Is it the size of the group? I know we have standard committees that we all need to be a part of. But if we're a small, like I'm with Honolulu Pauhana, we're a small group. So we have multiple, I guess, responsibilities. And I'm on the board, obviously. But how do you know when to diversify, or if somebody's taking on too much? If we recognize, another thing is when we recognize that a board member might be overwhelmed by personal issues, should we say something? Maybe say something privately, see what we can do to help? I mean, that's being supportive of one another for the common goal of all, being sensitive to that. I know I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm sorry.
So, Kanoe, it really depends on your club. Every club is a little different. So, some clubs, everybody is on the board because it's a small club. But, what's going to work for you? Because like Nancy said, you need a quorum. So maybe your board is going to be 6 people and you have one person in charge of all of the service activities. So Rotary does have an alternate board structure that you can use, but it's up to the club on how you want to do that. And it would be really good to have co-chairs or committees so that in case someone has an issue or something's not going, you always have backup to help each other out. So good question, Kanoe, and maybe work with your AG to see what's going to be best for your club and ask the members what they want. Okay, good question. So
Well put. Yeah.
So, to have a good good board working, people need to know what they need to do, right? The roles and responsibilities. So that's where Lorraine is coming on board, because Lorraine is going to talk about roles and responsibilities. She's with the YWCA in Hilo, and so she works with boards and volunteers, because we have volunteers that we need to work with. And here's Lorraine to talk about roles and responsibilities.
Thank you. Nancy, you said a lot. You took a lot of my thunder away. Thank you. We're going to reinforce it. Okay.
Good.
So the first thing I want you to understand is that a board is a volunteer organization. They're volunteers. They're not getting paid. So I have learned way long time ago is that you treat them really well. And this Nancy says you can't have your ego with you. That's absolutely right. You have to park your ego at the door when you walk into the board meeting. And you have to keep the goals in mind, the mission. And I'm talking about boards in general. What is the mission of that particular organization? And then you work towards the governance of it, and what is in the best interest of the organization, not what's in my best interest. And a lot of times I have to sit on my hands because I'm going, this is really a bozo thing, and realize that my bozo thing that I'm thinking is not in the best interest of the organization. So in general, when I'm looking at the management of a Rotary Club, and by the way, you can Google roles and responsibilities for Rotary, and it populates a page quite well. And so if you want more information, by all means do that. If you are a president-elect, you're going to get that at PETS. The first thing that you need to do, the management, or it's the resource I use is calling the management of the club. And actually, I want to talk about governance because it is the role, the responsibilities, the policies and procedure setting that happens at the board level. That doesn't necessarily pass down. There's a lot of things that happen at the board that don't necessarily go to the club. There's the behind the scenes stuff. So the first thing that they have to be responsible for is they meet the requirements of Rotary International and also D5000. So we're kind of like a McDonald's. There is a model that we're supposed to use so that our service and what we do is relatively consistent. So that if I go to Tokyo and have a McDonald's quarter pounder, it's going to taste like the same one in Hilo, that same in Boise. So we have some things that we have to do that's in a commonality, and it's the rules and regulations that are set forth by Rotary International, and we have some by D5000, and those are mostly deadlines that we need to meet. We have to be in compliance with our own governance documents. So that means we need to have bylaws and a constitution. Now, most of us have bylaws and a constitution, but I'm going to challenge you to say, when was the last time you looked at them, and did you determine whether or not they were consistent? So you have to look at, we just discovered that we have a bylaw that is in conflict with our constitution. So we've got some work that we need to do. So you want to keep it up to date. There needs to be, I would say at a minimal, a review at least every 2 years of your bylaws. The Constitution shouldn't change a whole lot, but your bylaws can to accommodate the things that are happening. The most recent bylaw change that we did was to be able to vote electronically, which we hadn't. So as technology or as things change, we look at our bylaws and then make sure it's not in conflict with our Constitution. And there are times that you do change the Constitution, but those should be fewer and farther between than when you're updating bylaws. You want to make sure that we have insurance. This is where make sure you have an insurance agent handy. Rotary does carry a lot of insurance to support the work that we do, but for each event that we have, we need to make sure the board needs to look at the risk management and make sure that there's insurance that is covering that risk. So for example, Rotary Club of Hilo Bay is going to have Oktoberfest. There's alcohol. We've got to look at the risk that goes with having alcohol on the premises and the potential of somebody being inebriated and driving. So that's part of the responsibility. So that's just an example. And then we also need to, because we work with Keiki, we have to make sure that we are in compliance with child protective guidelines. So that is, with D5000, I don't know if it's international, is that we do criminal background checks. We have rules working with our kids. And so we need to be in compliance. So those are primary things. We conduct meetings and we relay information to the members. Now, the other thing that we do is, as a board, is that we review the activities. So I'm going to say we do a post-mortem on major activities that we do to see if it was really worthwhile and what would we do differently. And that comes in through committee recommendations. We look at our fiscal report and make sure that we are being financially responsible as well. So the first thing you do is, if you're going to be a board member, plan to show up. Because I'm on boards that we don't have proxies. So if you don't show up, there's no proxy, there's a difficulty meeting a quorum. If you don't have a quorum, you can't make decisions. And so you can delay something that is important. I kind of like Nancy saying, get your reports out early so people can review them. There's nothing worse than sitting in a board meeting and nobody has set forth a report. And it's no problem. If you don't have a report, you don't have a report. But if you have a long laundry list and you're reciting it, somebody else is having to write it down. And then you do get the questions, so we can waylay the board as well. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you're a voting board and there's a reason for a vote. And that's partly to not have the egos override everything. But once you, and as Nancy said, once you make the vote, you stand by it, and that's what you relay to the members. And even if you didn't like the vote that I thought was a bozo idea, the bozo idea doesn't come out of my mouth when I'm talking to the members as well. We're a united front. Now, the roles and responsibilities, when I got to what they were, I looked at it and went, holy cow, if I'd known this was my role as a president, I wouldn't have been president. And then it occurred to me that my responsibilities as a president is I'm responsible to make it happen. I'm not necessarily the person that does it. So I want to say that a lot of the roles and responsibilities, while somebody is responsible for it in their role, they can delegate and they can ask for help. So the president is supposed to set goals for each committee. Now, I want to revise that a little bit, is that you work with the committee to set goals. I don't think that it's appropriate for me as a person to come in and go, this year, I want you to do this. But if you think about it and you went through strategic planning, then the goals are already kind of preset because of the strategic plan that you did with your board. So you just clarify the goals with each committee member. You encourage communication. We actually advise our presidents to get their own Rotary email because they'll be inundated and we know it. Review the activities, goals, and expenditures. The president is going to be really busy because a lot of times the president is involved with each committee at a meeting. So we also plan on, there's going to be a lot of volunteer time that the president's giving. You supervise the preparation of the club budget. Make sure that we have proper accounting procedures and that there's an annual financial review. Now, the financial review can be in the form of a formal audit, or it can be that somebody in the club who has accounting savvy can review it and say, yes, this makes sense. Make sure that your secretary and treasurer have an account on My Rotary and update membership. Collaborate with the district governor and the assistant governor on club and district matters. Communicate important information from the governor and Rotary and International to the club members. Prepare for the district governor's required visit. I don't know what we do extra. I think we open the doors. We follow Rotary's youth protection policies and our statement of conduct for working with youth. And we implement the requirements of all the different youth programs. We plan and lead monthly board meetings. Now, I am a graduate of the DLA, and I did learn that the vice president could help with running the board meetings as well. Plan and lead interesting and relevant club meetings and organize fun social events. We don't make the president do that. What we do is that's one of our committees that they plan this, they find the speakers, and we have a social committee to plan the social stuff. But the president is on board with supporting it. Ensure that comprehensive training is conducted for club members as needed. We have a club trainer. And what we, that's a, she's right now, she's a standing committee by herself, but it's one of those things that the board's, the president supports it and offers time for the club trainer to do her job. Involve members in carrying out club goals. We should need to, actually, the board president kind of needs to tell the club what the goals are so they know what they're going after. Track the club goals in Rotary Central or in Club Runner. Encourage members to attend district meetings and promote the Rotary Convention. Attend the district conference. Submit an annual report before leaving office, and I would actually have a couple sit downs with the incoming to let them know what's going on, what they're going to carry on into the new year, which is work with your successor, and then arrange for a joint meeting of the incoming board of directors and outgoing board. Now, we recycle our board members at the Rotary Club of Hilo Bay, so we don't have that formal meeting, but we do have talks about what's going on. So that's what the president gets to do. And so I also have to remember that he's leading 52 meetings every year at the club level, and chances are leading 12 board meetings and a few other things. So the president actually is a pretty hefty role. And my advice is that if you don't have time, you might want to think about it, taking on that position when you do have time. The resource that I'm using is from My Rotary, and they didn't have a vice president. And in our club, the vice president is the demotion. I was president, now I'm a vice president. So the president gets demoted to vice president. And I viewed my role during that time as that I was the backup system. So if the president couldn't run the meeting for the week, I ran the meeting. If the president needed some assistance, that's where I stepped in. If he couldn't represent, president couldn't represent us at some type of event, that was my job to represent. So that's kind of what I did. And according to my past president, immediate past president, he says I got him out of a lot of trouble. So I didn't ask him what he meant by that, but I'll take it as a compliment. You have a club treasurer, and the role and responsibility of the club treasurer is to just make sure that every penny is accounted for. And I'm going to say this is a club treasurer, not a foundation treasurer. But the club treasurer should be able to say what we spent, what we brought in and what we spent, and have the appropriate accounting guidelines so that anybody can read the report and know where the club stands. So they're supposed to attend district training assemblies and district conferences. Actually, everybody who is an executive on the board should be attending trainings. Regardless, because the executive team is actually the team that is doing a lot of the hard work in terms of the governance, because they have unique responsibilities. They're supposed to maintain accurate club financial records. They're going to collect dues and use them to pay fees. They're going to keep historical financial records in accordance with local document retention laws. It's kind of not like my taxes where I shove them up in a closet. I actually have to have them in some sort of order, and I have to keep them for X amount of years for Rotary. I manage the club and project funds, which means paying the bills and other expenses and distributing grants and scholarship funds. Work with the foundation to make contributions and manage grants. Make sure that the club follows its budget. And I'm going to say that we share the budget with the club so that there's no surprises when somebody wants to make a $7,000 purchase for something that we didn't have in a budget. To help to develop the budget for the next year. Provide monthly reports to the board in terms of the status of the finances of the club. Provide regular financial updates during club and board meetings as requested. Hand all records over to the incoming treasurer. We try to keep our treasurer so that we don't have that, but if you have a new one coming in, it needs to be complete and self-explanatory, and that person should be available to support. Write and present a detailed annual report at the end of the year. Have it reviewed by a qualified accountant. That you don't want to have them, if you're going to have an actual audit, you don't want them in your club. You want to have it an outside. It could be another Rotarian at another club, but not your club. And file club taxes. And that's what our treasurer has to do. So again, there's not a lot that the treasurer can delegate out. That's it, so here you go and have fun with it. We have a secretary, and again, they need to attend the trainings, and they're going to keep a record of what we do. So, and I'm out of time.
Thank you, Lorraine. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are the officers need to do, and there are resources on the Rotary website for your roles. So we need to move on because Toastmasters is going to be talking about how to run a board meeting. And here we have Sherry Imamura Ryan, and she's going to be sharing her screen. She is from Toastmasters. So take it away, Sherry.
Aloha, good morning. My name is Sherry Imamura Ryan, Distinguished Toastmaster, and I'm currently serving as the District 49 Youth Leadership Committee Chair. Also with me in an unofficial capacity is Rose Curlin, Distinguished Toastmaster and past District Director. She is now currently serving as the Region Advisor for District 1 for Toastmasters International. Now, it's important to manage time. So for today, we have 15 minutes. I will set my timer at 13 minutes so I can wrap up in my 15-minute time frame. Okay, let's take it away. To make sure your board meetings are run well, the first step is to take a hard look, a real hard look at the meetings and especially yourself. In Toastmasters, we call it the moments of truth. Now, let's see. If you have any questions and comments during the presentation, just say them out loud so we can just move on. And plus, number one, you might forget what the question was. Number two, I might forget to ask anybody if they have questions on each slide. Now, how ahead of the meeting should the agenda be provided to everyone? What do you think? And if no one answers, Rose might chime in with an answer or two.
1 week.
At least, yeah. We do recommend 2 weeks, but sometimes that's difficult. That is difficult. Now, our meetings, I went some goofy thing. Do meetings begin and end on time? Now, today's meeting, it did start on time, and it started with a bang with that fantastic video. I really enjoyed that. And we'll continue to see if it ends on time. Are they, are they productive? Are members focused on the points of discussion and our goals being met? What do you all see as barriers to productivity? For example, do the board members talk way too long? Do they arrive late? Are meetings going on and on and on? Do people get upset and start arguing? Do a lot of people blow smoke but hardly ever accomplish anything? Now, like real life, in all kinds of meetings, there's all different kinds of people. But as the leader of the meeting, if you are the leader, you have to take control of that. To ensure that the board meetings are productive, you need to have an agenda. It's a roadmap so that you can follow. So you need to prepare a written agenda that lists the topics for discussion, that it allows everyone to organize their thoughts prior to the meeting. We suggest 2 weeks, sometimes that's impossible. And the agenda should list all topics that are going to be discussed, if possible. The agenda should include the start and end times, which your agenda did, so that the leader knows the flow of the meeting. The leader knows exactly when to start, and Naomi did start on time. Everyone knows how long they have to discuss topics. So I did like that guide, and it lets everyone know that things are organized and professional. Now here in Toastmasters, we have timing lights. Green light when it's 2 minutes before wrap up, yellow light 1 minute before, and red light at the end. It just serves as a guide. And sometimes it's hard to keep track. If some of the members haven't arrived for a meeting, should you start the meeting? I'm going to stop share and let's look for some answers. If some people have not arrived for the meeting, should you go ahead and start, or should you wait for them? I'm going to call on, I see someone answering, but they have forgotten to unmute themselves.
I think it depends on the situation. If you definitely need to have quorum and the person that hasn't gotten there yet confirmed that they were coming to the meeting, I think that's also important. Can't wait till the last minute. You need to confirm your attendance.
Does somebody have a different opinion? Now at Toastmasters, we don't wait for anyone. We start. Too bad, too sad if you're late. But like the person, I don't know who, I forgot Imua's name, but like she said, it all depends. Usually though, no, people don't want to waste their time waiting for people. If you keep waiting, what's to say that the next time they're going to be even later? So they go, oh, we better come on time because they're going to start the meeting right away. So don't delay the meeting because there's not enough people there. Start. Sometimes though, you need to have a quorum, but you can do other things in the beginning so that it fills the time while you're waiting for people to come, such as that wonderful video that we had from High School Musical. Now, let's go back to the PowerPoint. Now, I can't see, should you time everything on the agenda? I'm going to say, yes, you should. Now, next question, now if you want to say, make comments, go ahead. Should you end the meeting on time if everything hasn't been discussed or decided? I'm going to stop share on that. No, because that often happens. What do you think? Do you think you should just cut it off when it's supposed to end? Like, should this meeting end right at 10:30, whether we've heard from everybody or not? What do you think?
No.
It depends. But if people have other commitments, maybe they're going to meet some friends for lunch at 11 o'clock. And if they don't leave right at 10:30, they won't make it. So it just all depends. To me, you probably should end it and have either, what are some of the other options you could have if you did decide to end it? Anyone?
You
You
could
could-
table the discussion. Go ahead, Nancy.
No, well, if you really had to end it, and or even if you don't have a quorum, you could have discussion with the people you have present and then send out a email type format to everybody with the discussion, especially if you have to have board of directors that have to make decisions. And
Mhm.
if you do it by email, you have to have 80% of the group for nonprofit organizations confirm a vote in writing, which would be an email. So it depends on the group and stuff, but because for me and my condominium board of directors, it's so much work putting them all together that we want to start, and you're right, you can do other things that don't require a quorum sometimes at the beginning to take care of some discussion, and then get to your votes, take your votes for what action you have to take, and then you can, if you don't have other decision-making things and people leave it, if you lose a quorum, it's okay if once your votes have been taken. But organizing a meeting is so much work. You want to take care of business before you start losing people. So
And I agree with Nancy. That's why as a leader, you have to really be flexible and watch the schedule. You have to know what your goal is, and you have to make sure everybody else knows what the goal is. We have done that before. If there's a thing that needs to be voted on, we do tend to do that first if we see that we're running over. So it all depends. So you as a leader and maybe some of the other leaders together, you can make that decision. Now, to ensure that board meetings are productive, you don't want a boring board meeting. So don't let the meeting drag. Don't let it wander off subject. Now, if you see people with glazed eyes, sleeping or yawning, that is a sign, not a good sign, but it's a sign for you. So the reason you don't want to let them get distracted is, why don't you? They might lose interest and they might not even want to keep working on the project. And they might not even want to come back to the meeting unless they might quit the board. They might say, this is it. I've had it. It's so boring. They're going on and on like I am right now. How do you control the meeting? Let's talk about that. How do you control the meeting if that does happen? What are some ideas that you might have? Anyone? If you feel more comfortable putting it in chat, you can, so that everybody can read your pearls of wisdom.
So we see Janine Arno wants to share. Janine?
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the things is you see somebody getting off track is to kind of gently redirect them and just say, hey, you know, we're running over. Can we kind of wrap up this discussion so we can go on to the next agenda? To really keep everybody focused so that you don't have these ongoing, you know, off the side discussions.
Yeah, no, that's and you know, people do that. And if it's a good friend of yours like Rose and I, we could just say, hey, you know what? Stop talking already. You know, we're going over. But usually, you know, you can't do that in a meeting. You could also say, that's a great idea. Let's talk about it after the meeting. You could also use your people skills and bring them back to the subjects at hand. That's so, you know, being the leader is you have a lot of different things that you have to take into consideration. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. I've got 5 minutes left. Encourage everyone to participate. Sometimes the leader is the one that's dominating the discussion. I'm gonna not stop my share, but let's talk about that. How do you prevent one person from hogging the conversation? Anyone? Just yell it out because I can't see you all.
I guess you could just say, let's give, I see a look on somebody's face. Let's give that person a chance before we hear from you again. Thank you. And then keep moving it on.
Yeah, that's great. And you know, in Zoom, a great way you can see if somebody wants to speak is they'll unmute themselves and you can call on them. Sometimes the most quiet person has the best idea. So it's a good idea if you can to ask different people.
Another idea too is as the president, you can ahead of time ask different people on your board, especially your executive group, that they take an item on the agenda. If they're really involved with it, have them explain it for the action to move forward because they know more about it perhaps. And then it's a change in the tone of voice. It's a change in the presentation. More people are involved instead of one person up top. That can sometimes help also.
Yeah, plus also that's a great idea. You could also send out some information in advance so people can kind of read through it. The
Okay.
shorter, yeah, the
Yeah.
shorter the better, yeah?
Yeah, well, for all my meetings, we send them out hopefully 48 hours ahead of time, the entire report, written report that are 4 pages long, but every single item on the agenda is there. And then all of our information is there. So if you can't hear anything, you could be reading it because we give them everything because we want them to make decisions on bids for contractors or things. So a lot of decision-making information is written up. So they all have it ahead of time. So it's really follow the now almost like expanded upon agenda with all the information written ahead of time.
Okay, so
When-
yeah, yes.
When you send that information out, is it worthwhile to maybe highlight and make note that you need to meet certain deadlines? So to highlight something.
Oh yeah, because people might not remember. You know, we're all so busy. We can't remember things. When I was the admin manager last year for the district, I would have to send out reminders to all the leaders so they would know what they had to work on. I got a couple of minutes left and I got about 4 more slides. Let's go through it real unless somebody has something awesome they want to share and they can't wait.
Well, one little thing, we put asterisks out on the front. If we needed action at this meeting, we designate that for an action item tonight at this meeting or today. And then that way there we can jump to those first. Okay.
Now, okay, let me see if I'm on the right. Okay, we need to focus on the meeting's purpose and make sure people don't go off track. What you could do is, as the leaders, after everybody's discussed, summarize everybody's ideas and guide the members and provide the options available to them. Because sometimes people either went to sleep, they're thinking about it some more, and they need that extra time. Now, if you still have you could rephrase things, but the most important thing about a meeting is you always want it to be collaborative, where people have worked together, that you're not forcing them as a leader to take on your opinion and, and say, okay, we'll let you win this time or whatever. And follow up in writing so that everybody understands and they're kept informed, because sometimes people can't attend the meetings. Lastly, these are the traits. I think somebody's already talked about the traits of a good leader. Actually, it's just a good people person. It's a skill to be a good leader. It does take time and experience. And think about, if you would love to learn more about public speaking and how to organize your thoughts, be a great leader, come to one of our meetings. Email me if you have any questions. Here's the district. I will pop the PowerPoint into the chat with the District 49 website and the District International. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much, and I will stop my share.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay, questions for Toastmasters? Any questions about running meetings? No, we're good. Okay. So just know that Rotary has a policy, a procedure that the board meetings need to be in writing, and the minutes need to be available to your board members within 60 days. So it's a good thing to put things in writing. And when you have a meeting, it's good to have a way of having decisions made. So when we did the Robert's Rules of Order training, we talked about how to make a motion. So just to remember, when you have a decision to be made and you need a vote, first of all, you need a quorum, right? So someone makes the motion and then someone else would second it. So you got to remember that if there's no second, then the motion actually dies because nobody's interested in moving forward. But if you do have a second, then you call for discussion, and that's where you discuss the motion, and you can tweak it at that time. But if there's no more discussion, then you can call for the vote, and you have the vote, and it's usually majority, unless your bylaw says that you need to have a certain percentage to carry it on. Okay, so thank you very much, Sherry. And remember, Toastmasters is there to help you. If you want them to do a public speaking session with your interactors, they're available. So please call Rose or Sherry. Okay, so let's move on to strategic planning and what the board needs to do for action steps to move forward. So first of all, it would be good to have a vision statement. And so Rotary's vision statement is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create a lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. So Rotary adopted this vision. And so what do you see for your club as a vision? Where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now? Is it more membership, more meaningful projects? What do you want to accomplish as a board? And so one of the things that you can do is to look at the strategic plan that your club has. If you don't have one, would be good to have a strategic plan. If you have one, revisit it. Maybe you need to reduce visions. Maybe you need some action steps. But the vision is, what do you see your club to be like in the future, and how do you get there? What are your action steps? So the strategic plan is looking at your club's strengths, weaknesses, the goals, and it should be shared goals. And as our presenters say, it should be the chairs or the club that own that goal, so that it's shared, and the board is the keeper of the strategic plan. So revisit your priorities, see where you are, make some changes. So the purpose, again, for the board is you're providing the governance for the club to thrive. You're connecting your members, your club, with the community to Rotary International. You're responsible for the direction of the club, and you represent the interests of your club. So that was mentioned several times, that we need to take a look at what the club members want. So the board is the governing body according to the Constitution. And this is from the current Rotary recommended constitutions. Your constitution may say something a little different, but it's the board that is the governing body for the club. And the governing body would look at what's happening in the club. So there was a survey of Rotary members around the world, and the survey revealed that it was the club experience that matters the most. Among more than anything else, it's the club experience. So are people enjoying the meetings? Do they feel that they belong to the club? Are they happy with the club service, the projects that you do? Are they proud of the impact to the community? So when people are not engaged, sometimes they'll still stick around because they want to be part of Rotary, and they're not able to participate in monetary ways or labor, but they want to be part of that group. So people join for different reasons, and the club has a value proposition, a value that people want to be a member of your goal, so of your club. So what is the goal of the board? Okay, so I picked the Cowboys because some people like them, some people don't, but a lot of their followers are so dedicated to the Cowboys, win or lose, they're still there, right? And so look at the members, the team members, they're sticking together, they're working together. Everybody has a different role, and they know that they need to work their own role in order for the team to progress, to be successful. And they're protecting their quarterback, right? Because the quarterback's going to make that goal. And so here's the team at the ending working together, and you can celebrate your successes and then develop team members for the future. So your scouts are looking for who's going to be a good team member in the future to fill these different roles. So think about the succession planning. What is your inventory of your members? What skills do they have? What skills do you need on your board? Do you need someone who's a good planner, someone who's good at social media that can get the word out, working together to handle all these roles? Okay, Mark. Mark? Okay. I think you wanted to see a bigger. Yeah, you can sometimes the wording is really small, so you got to get really close and look at the screen. So assess your board's strengths and weaknesses, assess the club's strengths and weaknesses, and decide what do you need to do, and set the goals to accomplish some of your goals. So look at the opportunities, the threats, the changing demographics of your community, of your club. Maybe a lot of clubs are still looking for locations, and maybe the place that you were there before doesn't work anymore. Look at funding sources. So look for the strategy and the action plan. We're problem solvers, so let's look at the situation and be a problem solver. So let's develop future leaders, because it's sometimes hard to keep on carrying away because people have different agendas, or maybe you're tired of doing things. Bring in people into committee, and see how they're working out. See how you can help them with their skills, communication skills, leadership skills, organizational skills. Help them with collaboration and developing and continuity. Okay, there's a lot of training that goes on, and a lot of resources out there, a lot of people that can help you. So I'm going to stop sharing right now because we wanted to do a breakout session. Okay, but we need to just do a 5-minute breakout session, and it's random. Go into your group and think about, is your board effective? And if not, what can you do? Let's share some ideas. How do you strengthen your board? How do you develop your future leaders? Okay, so are you ready? Just 5 minutes, because we've got Paul Saito coming on at 10:15 on fiduciary responsibilities, right? Okay, so breakout rooms. Let's go into maybe 6 breakout rooms, and then we'll have a whiteboard so you can put your ideas into the whiteboard after. So just 5 minutes, 5 minutes to talk to each other, meet new people. Okay. Okay, off you go. Click on the room. Hey, David. Anybody want to share some ideas?
It's interesting to watch the whiteboard. I think everyone's watching what's going on there.
Yeah. So yeah, good communication is really important, and having an agenda is good. And you can put the time on the agenda so everybody knows what how much time they have, and having them, your committee chairs, write out their notes ahead of time, giving it to your secretary, so your secretary can just cut and paste into the minutes. That'll help that person have good minutes. And you don't have to follow the same format on the agenda. If you've got things that are more pressing, you can start it at the beginning. The strategic planning or vibrant club workshop for your club is a really good idea. So everybody has input on what the club vision is, and they have buy-in, and they have they have an opportunity to share their ideas. Okay, so anybody want to share their ideas with everybody? Have a good idea of how you can overcome some obstacles on having an effective, efficient board? Hey, Vern, do you want to just share? Or Jay?
We conduct our meetings by Zoom, primarily because our treasurer is in Waimea. We're in Kelowna, so, and she's tied up with other organizations, so that works out the best. The challenge I have is our secretary and treasurer kind of swap each other when it comes to actually club meetings on keeping track of finances and so on. So I'm still working with that, but all in all, we hold it to 1 hour on Zoom and it works very effectively.
Great. Yeah, and sometimes you need to do that because they go to club meetings and really don't have more time to spare. So having a Zoom meeting cuts out all of that driving time and finding parking, and takes more time to get to a place in person. But there's some times where it needs to be in person, so it really depends on what you need to accomplish. Hey, Connie, did you? Sorry. Connie, did you want to say something?
Oh, Matthew had an issue that maybe we can discuss, because he was saying that one thing that kind of it puts a stumbling block at their board meetings is that the drinking, because the board members drink a lot. So maybe we can open that up as suggestions.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's what's wrong with all board meetings. We don't have drinking. We were discussing that the small clubs seem to have the same board members over and over. And what we're trying to do, we're considered a medium club, I guess now, but we have most members roll over, probably new positions, but we try to add some new members to the board so that there's a continuity in it. And we do seem to get along. I mean, we don't, like you said, we don't all agree, or was said before, but we do stick together with what happens. we might see a frowning face at our board meeting, but not at the general meeting.
Good idea to rotate, cross train, at the bank. I was at Bank of Hawaii, we cross train so that you have more coverage. So if someone isn't available, you always have backup. The drinking part, maybe you have the drinking after. It's an incentive to finish the meeting on time. And I think we need to be a little sensitive to drinking as a whole, because there are some people who have issues and may take that in a negative way. So just think about how we can be more accommodating, more accepting of other people's ideas and the way their lifestyle is. Okay, so we are at 10:15. So Paul Saito is here. He is with Kate Shuddy, and he is going to be talking about the board's fiduciary responsibilities. So I'm going to close the whiteboard if I can. Close whiteboard. Okay. And Paul, let me spotlight you, Paul.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Sorry, I just shut down my PowerPoint. But this will be pretty fast. So as you all know, as a board member, can I share a screen, Naomi?
Yep, sure.
Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, you all see that is that my fiduciary duty slide?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So a fiduciary duty is just basically a higher standard of duty of care that people owe to each other, right? So in normal society, you have a duty of care based on what the common law really says. So you have to make sure your property is safe for people to visit, those kind of things. That's a common law duty of care. But when you step into a role of a board member or an officer or somebody with responsibility, especially with somebody who has responsibility over assets of a club or assets of a group or assets of any person for the benefit of somebody else, the courts impose a higher duty on you. So what it's called is a fiduciary duty. So fiduciary basically means what the slide says. It's a legal duty to act solely for the interests of another party. So if you're a director or officer of your club, your duty is to make sure that you act solely for the benefit of your club members. And if the project or a fund or some assets are earmarked for a beneficiary, your duty as a fiduciary is to make sure that the assets are properly handled for that beneficiary. Okay, so I'll just go through this. So if you owe a higher standard of care, it's generally a fiduciary duty, and especially when it deals with property, assets, or money, it's called fiduciary duty. So fiduciaries generally may not profit from their role on the organization unless they have the organization's expressed informed consent. Okay, so that means if you're setting up a project and you want people involved in the project, and one of your members have specific skills that they can contribute to the project, there's nothing wrong with asking them or having them do the project or contribute to it. But if a significant benefit is going to be conferred on that member shouldn't participate, and the decision to use that member or the member's assets should be fully disclosed and agreed upon by everyone. Okay, so that's basically what the fiduciary responsibility is. So fiduciaries have a responsibility relative to administration, investments, monitoring, and distribution of property. Right, so charitable or public assets of the organization, which includes reputation of the organization and role in the community. So you basically have to act as a reasonable trustee or reasonable officer or director or representative of your organization, or your club. Okay, one area where a fiduciary duty comes up all the time with Rotary officers and directors is conflict of interest. So, so that's whenever a board member or a family or somebody related to a board member or the decision maker is likely to benefit from that board member's decision. So I know everybody has conflict of interest policies. So it's just what we're talking about. It's if the board member or family, immediate family member, spouse, partner, child, parent is going to benefit monetarily or from any major benefit from the decision of that board member, that poses a conflict of interest. So as you know, if a board member has a family member or the board member themselves might benefit from the decision, that board member should recuse themselves and not be involved in a vote, on that decision. Okay. Anybody have questions about conflict of interest? I'm sure everybody knows this pretty well. Okay, but that's one of the major areas of where a breach of fiduciary duty comes in, whenever someone benefits directly from their decision. Okay, the next few slides deal with Hawaii's Nonprofit Corporations Act. So, in general, duties are established primarily by common law. Tort duties, duty not to speed, duty not, speeding is set by the traffic code, but a board member or officer or director's responsibilities is actually set by statute. So in Hawaii, the general statute for nonprofit board of directors is this Nonprofit Corporations Act, and it's Hawaii Revised Statute section 414D, and it starts at section 149. So it just says the director has to discharge their duties in good faith, and in good faith means without some bias or without some prejudice or without some motive other than to benefit the beneficiaries. Okay, in a manner that is consistent with the director's duty of loyalty to the corporation, with the care an ordinary prudent person in a like position would exercise under similar circumstances. So number 3 is what we call a reasonable person, or the reasonable trustee, or the reasonable director standard. Okay, so whenever you're faced with a decision on whether you need to avoid a conflict of interest or making a decision based on your fiduciary responsibility, you have to think, what would another person in my position or this position do with the information that I have? And if you're comfortable that another director, officer would make a similar or the same decision, then that's the standard that you need to abide by. Okay. So in a manner the director reasonably believes to be in the best interest of the corporation. So again, fiduciary responsibility means you're standing in the place of the corporation, not yourself. You make the decision in the best interest of the corporation. Okay. This last slide is what you can rely on. So, oh, sorry. Sorry, I lost that thing. Anyway, what this last slide talks about is in discharging your duty, you can rely on professionals or experts, right? So if you want a legal opinion you can rely on lawyers, and the lawyer is supposed to give you their best assessment of whatever your legal issue is. So in discharging your duties, you can rely on financial statements, reports, financial data prepared by lawyers, accountants, CPAs, investment advisors, those kinds of professionals. So whenever you have a question that might need a higher level of, or you need to rely on a more official or an expert's opinion, you should try and get one, because what that does is it protects you from individual liability. And the last thing I will say is, as an officer director of a nonprofit, you're protected from individual liability for the decisions you make, as long as you follow these standards. So I know Rotary has insurance that would protect you as officers and directors also. So it's built into the statute, and it's built into the law that nonprofit officers and directors, initially the first level is they're protected from their reasonable decisions. So until somebody proves your decisions were unreasonable, you have an expectation that Rotary or your club will protect you. Okay. Anybody have any questions? No, yeah. Naomi told me 10 minutes, so that's, I'm trying to stick with that. Any questions? Naomi, anything you want me to cover?
No, you want to stop sharing screen? Let's see if somebody has a hand up.
Okay.
Okay, this is your chance, everybody. Paul is an attorney. But we do have in the district, we have an ombudsman. And so the ombudsman is an attorney, is Gary Grimmer, I believe, that can help you with situations. We also do have a legal counsel, which is Del Green. So we have resources, but your first line of, not defense, but your first line of communication should be your AG and your DG, and they will guide you. Right, Mark? Okay, good. Okay, so we have an ombudsman. Okay, so no questions for Paul? Questions for Mark? Anybody? Virginia?
I just have one question, and that is there a process or a ability for clubs to submit their bylaws for review by the district to look at both compliance issues with RI and anything that might be problematic?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. At one time, Del Green did collect constitution and bylaws from the clubs, but not everyone sent that in. So, Mark, is that safe to say that Del would be the one?
I think probably Del would be surprised, but that's a very good question, Virginia. And we should have that opportunity for our clubs, for somebody to review them. We'll work on that.
Okay, and you can announce it at the next president's meeting, yeah, if we have some resources. But I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I do have a little bit more to share on resources. So just your checklist, okay? We talked about the club constitution, bylaws. The Learning Center has a lot of information looking at your budget, your calendars, and your communication plan. We should add on there a crisis management plan. So have at your fingertips for any event that you have a plan. If something happens, whether it's a natural disaster or something happens, who you're going to call. And of course, if it's an emergency, you're going to call 911 first, right? So the Learning Center, you go to rotary.org to the learning and reference and go to the Learning Center. And right now they're doing maintenance, so you're not able to get into Rotary, but go to this Learning Center and you're going to find all of these courses that you can take. Professional development is for Toastmaster courses. So at your leisure, take them, encourage your board members, your directors and your club members to go to this club leadership one where you can see they have these courses that they can take on their role. You can also find Learn by Role. And when you go Learn by Role, the club roles. And so this is where they can see what they need to do. So other resources in my Rotary, it's the health check, the strategic plan, Rotary Club Central, lots of information on the Rotary website. Okay, so we are at what, 10:30, right? Okay, so if you have any questions, please let your AG know, your president, and let's help you with resources and work together. We are all in it together, and let's have fun doing it, because what Rotary does is just so awesome on the impact that we have. So Mark, you've got some last last words?
So again, thank you for your time this morning. I hope that helps you in your volunteer position on your boards. And please use the district people as resources. And like Virginia's kind of a question, if you have any questions, talk to your AG or myself. We'll do what we can to help you. Thank you and have a great day.
And make sure you
Thank you,
go,
presenters.
you have
Presenters did a great job. Thank you.
convention in Singapore and conference in Kauai in May. Mark your calendars, save your money.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Mahalo.
Paul. Thank you, Sherry and Rose.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, Jim.